super fun. Super fun to talk about the MLS, USL, Open Cup, just all that fun stuff. Feels like it's like 3 seasons ago, but right now I think he still has tons to prove, and he didn't perform too well with Chelsea. I think he.
I'm here with forward Jake Keegan of Northern Colorado Hailstorm FC. Great game. You guys got the W here against Rapids 2.
He's a young player. He's a young player. And
Come on, baby. USA, baby. USA. As Pulisic scores another goal today for AC Milan against Hellas Verona. What's going on, guys? It's Riccardo here with Linners and Wosers, and we got a pretty exciting episode for you guys. We're talking about the Nations League rosters for both the U.S. men's national team and the Mexican national team. As I said, my name is Riccardo with Linners and Wosers. You guys can go ahead and follow our channel on X at Linners and Wosers, where we also have a Linners and Wosers lower league gaming channel and outlets where you can go ahead and follow along your favorite team with news, updates, and stats. But I'm not doing this podcast by myself. As always, I'm joined by great people, and those great people are just backstage. I'm going to go ahead and bring them on here as I turn down this volume a little bit. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, it's Ivan De La Garza and Nick Rosser. Fellas, how you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Feeling good. Excited about our trip on Tuesday to Tulsa.
Yeah, that's going to be an exciting one. We're about to drive 10 hours one way, 11 hours the other way to go ahead and watch Northern Colorado Hailstorm FC take on Tulsa Athletic in the first round of the U.S. Open Cup. Yvonne, how are you today? Thanks for joining us as always.
I'm great. Thanks for inviting me. It's great to be here. Excited to talk about Mexico a little bit.
You're going to talk about Mexico? I swear you were going to talk about the United States. But yes, as always, joined by the two great minds of footy. Nick, how are you feeling today after that FA Cup game?
Oh, bro, horrible.
United.
It was like I was complaining about Klopp's subs. I felt like they weren't at the right time. Maybe they were thinking more about Brighton at home. But like at this point, it was international break, and we still got. It's just frustrating. I think it's just. Losing to United 2, where I think we could have put the game to bed way before, like the equalizer in the 87th minute was just like probably the most frustrating point.
Can't believe your team is thinking about Brighton. Brighton, they've been having an off spell recently.
We're thinking about health, I think, more than anything.
Well, as I mentioned here earlier, guys, today's conversation is purely going to be about the U.S. men's national team and the Mexican national team as they get ready for the 2024 CONCACAF Nations League Semifinals on Thursday, March 21st. The United States is playing against Jamaica, and Mexico is playing against Panama. Both rosters have been released for both teams. We're going to go ahead and dive into the U.S. men's national team roster first. Go over all of the players that are on that 23-man roster, our initial reactions. We've actually had a couple of days to sit back and think about how we feel about the selections for Greg. It's not the worst one. It's actually one of the best ones, I think, in terms of rosters, but we'll dive into that a little bit. And then Ivan here will go ahead and inform us a little bit here about the Mexican national team roster and our initial reactions. I did notice a few things about the roster that I'm going to go ahead and point out myself. If Ivan doesn't beat me to it. But this is going to be exciting. As well, we are going to go ahead and do a predicted lineup for those games on how Greg Berhalter is going to line up the U.S. men's national team against Jamaica. And Jimmy is going to go ahead and line up the Mexican national team against Panama. All right.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Let's do it.
All right, well, let's go ahead and start off here first with the U.S. men's national team here. Let's go ahead and I want to go ahead and mention here real quick. The U.S. men's national team roster was released on Wednesday here just before the Inter Milan versus Atletico Madrid, Champions League matchup there, where Greg Berhalter joined the CBS Sports crew and shared a little bit about the details on the selection. He explained the reasoning behind two players making the list, given that they've not had a lot of playing time. And so, without further ado, guys, I'm going to go ahead and throw on here the U.S. men's national team roster. USA. But let's start here first with the goalkeepers. In goal, we've selected three keepers. We have to. Every team has to. With Inter Miami's Drake Callender, Ethan Horvath, Cardiff City, and Matt Turner with Nottingham Forest. The defense, Serginho Dest over at PSV, Christopher Lund over at Palermo, Mark McKenzie at Genk, Tim Ream over at Fulham, Chris Richard at Crystal Palace, Anthony Robinson also at Fulham, Miles Robinson at FC Cincinnati, and Joe Scally over at Borussia Gladbach. In the midfield, we see Tyler Adams, who is just recovering here from Bournemouth, an injury at Bournemouth. He's not recovering from the team. He's recovering from his injury. Johnny Cardoso from Real Betis, Luca De La Torre, Weston McKennie, and I'll come back to Luca. Weston McKennie, Juventus, Yunus Musa, AC Milan, Gio Reyna, not on loan at Nottingham Forest, Fullerin Balogun at Monaco for the forwards, Riccardo Pepi, PSV, Christian Pulisic, come on, baby, over at AC Milan, Josh Sargent over at Norwich City. We'll come back to him in a sec. Malik Tillman, also a PSV. We got a bunch of PSV boys here making the list. And Tim Weah over at Juventus. Now, I added a little note down here. Brendan Aronson and Haji Wright both replacing Luca De La Torre and Josh Sargent, which was announced earlier today. Both players have a small minor injury that they need to go ahead and recover from. If I'm not mistaken, Josh's injury is related to a knee issue, and then Luca is just muscle related. And so Brendan Aronson will go ahead and replace Luca, and Haji Wright, who scored the winning goal against Wolves to send Coventry City over to the FA Cup semifinals. But let's look at this roster here. Initial thoughts, Nick. What do you how are you feeling looking at this roster here? Your initial reaction when you saw Greg's 23?
I think it's just like every Nations League before. I think it's the strongest. It's probably the strongest lineup we'll see in the U.S. so far. There are like you can probably argue some snubs, but I'd say this is still the strongest we're gonna get. I don't think Drake Callender sees any time, so I think they're just bringing him for that Inter Miami hype, but also, yeah, I have no problems with this. I really like this. I really like this Greg lineup or roster he brought. It just reminds me of other Nations League, which it seems like he's taken more seriously in the past.
If you're going to go ahead and give this a school grade, with A being the best, F the worst, what would you give it?
I'll give it an A.
Give it an A?
Yeah.
And Ivan, looking at this roster here, is there a sense of a little bit of intimidation for either both Mexico, Panama, or even Jamaica here as they go against this pretty strong team? What are your initial thoughts when you saw this roster?
The last time we played a good United States was with Diego Coca at the helm of the national team. I don't even know. Yes, Diego Coca in the Gold Cup. No. Nations League back in last year, sometime last year, and it was a very scary team. 3-0 ended up in September. Now I remember September of last year. We lost 3-0. We haven't played against this good US with Jimmy Lozano, and I'm excited to see how we do. This is the best that US can do, in my opinion. I agree with Nick that Callender has no business being here. This is a player that has the Inter Miami hype. Ethan Horvath, the name just scares me because it gives me nightmares of Denver. Yeah, and Pepe, Pulisic, again, players are to be reckoned with, and if both teams make it to the final, it's going to be a very exciting game for both.
For me, if you're not going to play someone like Callender, then like why not bring in someone like Gago Slonina, try to get him a little more practice reps with the national team just to get that more experience. I think Calendar, I think we've seen recently in his MLS games, CONCACAF Champions Cup game. Sorry, he's pretty full. He's pretty error prone. I think so. I just don't. I don't think he'll even see the field. So what's the harm in bringing someone younger that might adapt to the national team someday?
Well, I do want to go ahead and point out that Gago Slonina was not brought to the national team. He did get the call up for the U23 for the friendly
Oh, perfect.
fixtures here in March. So him and Patrick Schulte both got the call up here to go ahead and represent the U23s in their friendlies this month. Ivan, give this team a school rating.
In terms of opposition, in terms of Mexico, of how I see this team going forward, it is an A. I agree with Nick. This is an A, and this is the best that US can do, as I said before. And yeah, I'm excited to face this team in the final.
And I
Go
I
ahead.
think, well, I'm just want to throw in, I think those are healthy snubs too. It's not like we're seeing the likes of some players we're used to seeing that are not bringing that quality to the team. I think those are also useful players that could interchange with any of these players. And so I think it's a good problem to have instead of more of like, we have over the last few years, we're definitely going over arguments of MLS players coming in. Not saying there's bad MLS players, but I just think this is still the strongest lineup, and with those snubs, even they're quality players too. So I'm liking what I'm seeing. There's obviously some other players that are rotational from MLS or some other leagues that could fold into this mix as well. But from the ones we have right here, I really like the look at this roster.
Now, you both went ahead and picked on Drake Callender here, goalkeeper for Inter Miami, who plays in MLS. And again, this is the third goalkeeping spot. You bring up a good argument in terms of why not bring a young guy that gets the experience? They can't go ahead and do that this month because of the two friendlies, but I totally agree with you. You do go ahead and bring on somebody like Gago Slonina or Patrick so they can go ahead and get that experience with the first team. Now, if you are just going to go ahead and bring on a third goalkeeper, and this is just being nitpicky, again, there's no real reason to be upset with Drake being on the lineup. But Sean Johnson over at Toronto FC, most clean sheet. He's got 2 man of the match performances. This is a guy who I don't want to say is used to being the third string goalkeeper, but I mean, if you're just going to go ahead and look at who to go ahead and bring in to fill in that spot, I wouldn't have been too upset with seeing him back on the national team roster. So maybe there is a little bit of that Inter Miami hype. We don't get to go ahead and see Zach Steffen of the Colorado Rapids get called up. It's okay. Not necessarily a big snub, but these are just the goalkeepers. In terms of goalkeepers, when we get to the predicted lineup, we'll go ahead and discuss who will go ahead and start or who we think will go ahead and start. But let's move on here to the defenders real quick. Now, in terms of the defenders, Austin Trusty, Cameron Carter-Vickers not getting the call, a little snub. Now, I saw a quote here from Brendan Rodgers. They had a little bit of discussion that they're going to go ahead and keep CCV over at Celtic so he can go ahead and train with them during the international break, go ahead and get fully fit here. So not necessarily too upset. In my opinion, I'm not too upset at that. Now, the inclusion of Miles Robinson, we had a little bit of discussion. This could be another one of those guys for Greg Berhalter that he's just going to go ahead and continuously call up despite of his performances in MLS. It's like the next Walker Zimmerman per se. He did go ahead and choose to follow the bag. No disrespect there. Follow the bag to go ahead and play for FC Cincinnati after his Atlanta United stint was over. He did not make the jump to Europe. But in terms of these defenders selected from the fullbacks position, now I wrote in my article, if you don't bring Joe Scally, if you don't bring Lund, if you don't bring Sergino Dest, and if you don't bring Anthony Robinson, what is this federation doing? Why are you, I had a fear that maybe we'd see the likes of Shaq Moore or DeAndre Yedlin come into this team. And it looks like Greg has learned or has listened to the Euro snobs online. Maybe he doesn't. But finally, we get to go ahead and see the best of the best in those positions. And then you bring in guys like Mark McKenzie, who's having I don't want to say a fantastic season with Genk, but he's playing week in, week out. You have Tim Ream at Fulham, who still brings that veteran experience. Chris Richards, who found himself in the Crystal Palace back line performing week in and week out. And then, as I mentioned, Miles Robinson. Nick, your initial thoughts just looking at these defenders?
Yeah, I think they're strong. I think when Greg like when his job's on the line per se, he brings what he needs to win. And that is the US's best. And I think if like you were saying those four fullbacks, they are the best players we have at those positions. So it was absolutely fantastic from Greg. I'm gonna give him credit for this roster, even though I'm not a big fan of his, but I do see when his back's up against the wall, he will call in what's best. It's unfortunate we don't get to see a little more consistency with that, but like at the same time, it's strong, and I wouldn't even disagree with the Miles Robinson inclusion. He's had a good history with the U.S. men's national team in the past. I wouldn't even disagree if you interchanged him with Walker Zimmerman just due to being having that respect and presence, but.
Mhm.
Within the players, I'm not saying the fan base, but I'm saying within the players that itself, the locker room.
And I look at this lineup here, and I look at the previous Nations League that we've performed in 2021 there, uh, where it was Greg and he had his players that he selected, and then you look at 2022 when we had BJ Cullen in charge, and he went full Euro snob lineup. He brought in the best of the best, and now that Greg is back for the national team, back playing Nations League, you're in the semifinals. He's taking the same approach here. Go and get the best players, even if that means leaving those Major League Soccer players back home. And it's a good time. A lot of these players this season doesn't necessarily stop for them. It keeps going. So they're continuously performing with their club. A handful of them have CCC that they need to go ahead and prep for in later April. And so overall, defenders, just like the goalkeepers, really good selection. It's just nitpicky here on one or two names, honestly. So
Of
this
course,
keeps
I mean,
this keeps the A grade all around. Let's move on here to the midfield group. I want to go ahead and start with Yunus Musa, who's looking to find his feet here at AC Milan. Had a great performance against Empoli. Has been asked to go ahead and step in the midfield during the Europa League matches, and he's consistently getting minutes and making the most of the opportunity. Now, I'm not saying he's playing phenomenal like some of the other U.S. men's national team players here, but at least that consistent playing time and playing quality footy is fantastic. Seeing Yunus Musa doing that in one of the Europe's top 5 leagues. Johnny Cardoso, I mean, someone who's absolutely having a breakout season this year with Real Betis. We had Tyler Adams on this list. He's just recovering from injury. So we could go ahead and see a nice competition at who will be slotted in that 6th position if they play the lone 6, if it's the double pivot. But Greg did mention over at CBS that Tyler Adams is not going to go ahead and start these games. But if we're looking to go ahead and close out the games in the last 20 minutes, this is a guy you can go ahead and bring in defensively, whether that be in the middle of the park or even at right back. He's versatile there. We're not going to have Serginho Dest for the first match due to a suspension. Now, Luca De La Torre here, he is injured, so he's being replaced with Brendan Aronson, who had a great day today. He absolutely cooked. And this was a guy that got a little bit of a snub, just like maybe like Gio Reyna here, who wasn't necessarily performing at the best. So you kind of decide who you bring in, who you don't bring in. And at first, he did get the snub. It was a little bit disappointing because of his not quality, but his experience. Just like you mentioned for Walker Zimmerman, has the respect with the guys. He's been building that chemistry. He's been with part of the team for a while, but it's nice to go ahead and see him back and included in this lineup. Gio Reyna probably having a nightmare scenario right now at Nottingham Forest, making the move from Dortmund on loan to the Premier League, thinking he'd go ahead and get more minutes, and he's not getting those minutes. So hopefully a performance of a lifetime during this Nations League. We saw the quality he had last year. He can go ahead and showcase that for the national team, and it could go ahead and transcend over to Nottingham Forest and close out the season getting those consistent minutes. And then arguably top 3 CONCACAF players, arguably Juventus's best player this season, it's Weston McKennie, who had a small injury with his shoulder. They fed him some good pasta in Italia, and now he's like Super Saiyan, a regen of Andrea Pirlo, being able to go ahead and be a deep play deep lying playmaker, playing those long balls, being able to go ahead and dribble with the ball. He's quality all around, so it's nice to go ahead and see him. I have a lot of expectations for him myself to go ahead and not necessarily carry this men's national team, but dominate the middle of the park. And I think he has some great countrymen to go ahead and do that here against Jamaica. Nick, your initial thoughts here on the midfielders?
Strong. I like it. I'm interested in seeing Johnny in this fold since he's in just great form. Reyna, I think we've all seen the talent. I even saw it in Denver when he scored against Mexico. I just think he's had a major rough patch in his club career, and it may affect form, but we all can see the talent he possesses, and I still think it's greater than most players in the U.S. men's national team pool. So I do see his inclusion, and if he doesn't play that many minutes, I think it's probably due to form, and he's gonna probably have to understand that this time. Um, but yeah, I love it. I love in the midfield.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and move on here to the forwards here. And I feel like this one was probably the most difficult in terms of selection for both for Greg and the whole federation. I mean, all of our forwards just all of a sudden found great form with, the exclusion of Florian Balogun. He's not been in great form, but he still has gotten that call up here for being the lethal striker that he is. We know the quality that he brings to this team. And so alongside him, Riccardo Pepi, one of the PSV boys who I think has had a pretty good season with PSV coming off the bench and grabbing those goals. Christian Pulisic, how many times am I going to say this? Come on, babe. He just hit the 20 goal contributions for AC Milan today with the second goal for AC Milan against Hellas Verona today in their 3-1 win. He found a goal in both legs of the Europa League fixture against Slavia Prague. Yeah. And so this is a man in form, and we know he owns CONCACAF. I'm going to bring you back on stage, Yvonne, so I can let you know. He owns CONCACAF. This guy, whether he's going to go ahead and play right wing or left wing, we know the quality that he brings for the national team, that armband he's going to go ahead and rep. He is literally Captain America. Josh Sargent, fantastic form. I mean, insane form for Norwich, but he will not be taken part of this national team roster. In matter of fact, he's being replaced by another guy who initially was snubbed, but now he's in the lineup, and that's another informed gentleman, Haji Wright. And then closing out our forwards, we have Malik Tillman, who's also cooking it up at PSV. Not the best of game against Dortmund in the Champions League. However, we know the quality that he can go ahead and bring off the bench as a substitute and as a winger position or as the 10 subbing in for Gio Reyna. So that'll be a nice battle to go ahead and see who will go ahead and get the minutes there. And then Tim Weah for Juventus, who's probably also had a nightmare season here with Juventus, only being involved in one goal contribution. And so this is a guy who's brought in because we know the quality that he brings for the national team. Although he's having a nightmare season at Juventus, he's a totally different player over for the national team. He plays higher up the field, and his pace and technical ability on the ball is crucial to go ahead and beat these CONCACAF defenders. Nick, your initial thoughts on these forwards?
Strong, yeah. You said Haji's replacing
Josh Sargent.
Sargent with his minor injury. It's a good replacement. I think Haji's making a great late push to include himself on that Copa America roster. I think that's everyone's main goal for 2024. Nations League, nice. It's a good test. I think it's a great test for our strongest lineup. But yeah, he's making a great late push. I love Pepe on the national team. I had my doubts on taking him to the 2022 World Cup because I thought he was still young, figuring out form at Augsburg. However, he's fantastic at PSV. He was fantastic last season as well on Groningen, I believe, and he's filling in his role amazingly. I don't think he's going to start for the U.S. men's national team. But he's look at his role off the bench for PSV is second to none. It's really hard to start over forwards like Luke De Jong when they're in just such great form always. For a team like PSV, so it's great inclusion for him. I believe Balogun's also going to have a great effect. I just think when you actually watch him play, he's got more technical ability than a lot of players in the CONCACAF region. And so I think this season he's just not finding form at Monaco, but we all saw kind of the quality was he's not having the worst start to his U.S. men's national team career. We expected probably maybe a goal or two more, but it's still no problem. He's still scoring, and so I like this. Malik Tillman too, also a great player, doing a great job at PSV.
Now, someone who did not get the call up here, but I think he's found himself some nice form here is Brendan Vasquez, who's absolutely eating it up over at Monterrey in Liga MX. How would you feel if worst case scenario, and I don't, he was to go ahead and be included because someone else picked up an injury or a minor injury?
I probably question him because I think I'd rather call in Jordan Pefok over Brandon Vasquez over anything. So I think Liga MX is currently in 2024 is not as strong as it used to be, and he's playing on one of the top teams in the league. And so I think you're gonna find goals in that way still. And I think going from MLS to Liga MX is a subtle step above, but it's not like watching players like Jordan Pefok playing in the Bundesliga. These players play in the Eredivisie. They're still just stronger, more technical leagues, and I think they're going to translate more to playing against, stronger opposition, more technical opposition.
Two other players who are currently playing in Liga MX that are U.S. men's national team internationals who are not on this roster is Cade Cowell over at Chivas and Alejandro Zendejas over at Club America. Ivan, can you go ahead and share with us here a little bit on how you describe they're doing so well for these clubs? And I know Zendejas has been with America for a while now, but Cade Cowell just making the move, Brendan Vasquez just making the move. How do you think these fellas are fitting in for the national team?
Cade Cowell has struggled a little bit with Chivas starting in the season. He's finding form. He's assisting. He's not quite scoring goals. He's had like 1 or 2 goals with Chivas. He's kind of being a little bit of the leader now of the attacking, since Chicharito's barely getting adapted to the team. And Alejandro Sendejas has also struggled in the beginning, but he has also found a little bit of form, having 5 goals in the last 3 games, and it has been insane. I think it's a little bit not surprising since there's a lot of quality in the forwards right now, with Balogun, Weah, Pulisic, you name them. There's a lot of quality, so I'm not surprised that they're not called up, to be honest.
All right. Well, that we'll go ahead and conclude here. I think our initial reactions and our thoughts regarding the selections. We're going to go ahead and now go through and give our predicted lineup for the game against Jamaica here on Thursday. We'll be right back.
Look at this, guys. Right behind me, doing this for the very first time, guys. We're doing the U.S. men's national team starting 11. And I got the blackboard here we're going to go ahead and use so we can go ahead and showcase to you guys exactly what we think the formation is going to go ahead and be. So starting in goal, and we'll go this way. The formation is going to go this way, guys. Ethan Horvath, Drake Allender, or Matt Turner?
Matt Turner.
Matt Turner?
Yeah, I agree.
I'm going to go ahead and agree as well. Despite Ethan Horvath having 4 clean sheets so far for Cardiff City, Matt Turner is still United States number 1. 4 in the back.
Yep.
Now, remember, Serginho Dest will not be playing this match due to a red card suspension that he picked up against Trinidad and Tobago. So, our fullbacks, I'm feeling Jetty and Scally.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Jedi.
Jetty. Now, our center back pairing. Do we stick with Tim Ream and Chris Richard, or are we going to go ahead and see something new?
We stick with that rock.
We go ahead and move on to our midfield. Double pivot or single 6?
I want to say single 6.
I want to say single 6 with 2 8s as well.
Yeah.
Single like in Jamaica, he's going to switch to Mexico.
Okay.
It's got to be Johnny at the 6.
Got to be Johnny.
Johnny Cardoso.
And it's now
McKinney. We'll already start it off.
Okay.
Started
I was
off
gonna
strong. And I want to think with the players we got in, I want to say Musa.
I'm also going to go ahead and agree with you and say Musa here over Gio. I think it was already hinted that Gio is going to be a player who comes off the bench.
Yep.
Now, our front
Pulisic?
three. Pulisic, left or right?
Pulisic. Left. I'm going to say left.
Okay. Nick,
Sure.
you don't sound so confident.
I feel like, I don't know. He's pretty interchangeable when he goes in. So left,
See,
sure. Start him on left.
I'm a little conflicted because I could see Pulisic on the right and Tillman on the left.
I could see Pulisic on the left, Weah on the right.
Yeah.
Same. That worries me a little bit in terms of Weah's form right now, but I think we're going to stick with what we know Greg has done in the past. Another option I think wouldn't be too bad is another option I don't think would be too bad would be having Pulisic right wing and Haji right at the left, playing kind of like a double striker, but swifts over to the left-hand side. Now, up top,
Balogun, I think.
if Josh Sargent was here, would he be starting?
No. I think it's Balogun because I think we got to also put in the perspective that this is Greg's team and what Greg last used.
Yeah.
And I think he was comfortable with Balogun last time. I think he was testing Balogun, Pepe half and half. But I think like in the pivotal moments, it was Balogun.
So we're looking here at the U.S. men's national team predicted lineup. I'll put it right here. Predicted lineup that will go ahead and go against Jamaica here on Thursday. Matt Turner stuck there as the U.S. men's national team number 1 despite club form. Jedi, a lock. Scally, a lock. No Serginho Dest. Tim Ream, Chris Richards as the center back pairing. Just keep it simple. Keep it the way you've been doing it. Now, the new introduction to this U.S. men's national team, first team in a competitive game like the Nations League semifinal, is Johnny here, which you guys have to be excited the same way I'm excited, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
As I mentioned, top 3 players in CONCACAF right now. Weston McKennie leading our midfield block, holding it down and dominating the middle of the park, making sure Jamaica cannot come through the middle, instead play long balls to their pacey wingers. And then Musa, crucial 8 that goes box to box.
Absolutely. One thing I love about Musa is he's got like line breaking passes / dribbles, like advanced dribbles, which not a lot of players in the pool in our midfield position are like very good at that. We're more like strong structurally, more physical, but I like the way Musa can push the ball forward.
No, I totally agree with you. It's his ability to move the ball up the field, whether it's at his feet or moving it. Up top, we already agreed it's going to be our lethal forward, Balogun here, pairing up here with one of the most informed players right now in the world is Christian Pulisic playing the left wing. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we know the capabilities of Tim Weah here for the national team that is totally different than that of Juventus. And we're sticking with them as our front 3 to go ahead and cause havoc to Jamaica. Out of 10, what do we think of this lineup? I think 9.
I think 9, yeah. Nothing's
8.5.
perfect.
9. I wish he was more informed. I wish he was playing more. And I wish he was more informed. And I wish he was more informed. And that gets me a 10.
Now, I raise a question. Say you play Mexico in the final. Do you repeat the same lineup?
I think we'll have to go ahead and wait until the game, honestly, to go ahead and see if there's going to go ahead and be any changes or injuries. But I don't think there's going to be any real changes, to be honest, given he needs to perform, because I'm not saying he's got a hard lock. I think Weah needs to perform. And also, if Pepe comes off the bench and scores, I think he sees more minutes during the Mexico game. Not necessarily starts, but more minutes. Now, over here, I think Serginho Dest. I think Serginho Dest, when he's back, he comes back against Mexico. I mean, that's an easy yellow card accumulation that he picks up against the Mexican players. Putting a few of them on a yellow.
Yeah.
But that will go ahead and wrap up here our U.S. men's national team predicted starting 11 against Jamaica. I'm going to go ahead and erase the board here, and then we'll go ahead and do the Mexico one. So I'm going to go.
All right, guys, that will go ahead and wrap up the U.S. men's national team discussion here. Now, on the other side of the Nations League bracket, we have Mexico against Panama. And we got Ivan here who's going to go ahead and dive in here and give us some insight exactly on the roster selection for Jaime Lozano, Jimmy
Jaime
Lamborghini,
Lozano.
Jaime Lozano, and then our initial reactions, our thoughts, some input that I've noticed about this team. And then, just like we did for the U.S. men's national team, a predicted lineup that Ivan will go ahead here and lead the line for. So, without further ado, I'll bring back the fellas here to go ahead and talk about the Mexican national team and throw the roster on stage, which was made by Ivan himself. Looks so clean. Look at that. Let's go ahead and go through the goalkeepers here, and I think I can nail them all without mispronouncing them, but feel free to correct. I can't even pronounce mispronunciation. But here we go. For the goalkeepers, Julio Gonzalez plays over at Pumas. Angel
Angel
Malagon
Malagon.
over at America. He's also on my EAFC 2024 career mode. I got him on a free. Guillermo Ochoa over at Salernitana, who just recently made history.
Yep.
And the defenders, we have Johan Vasquez, who plays in Serie A for Genoa. Cesar Montes,
Cesar
plays for
Montes.
Almeria. Eric Aguirre plays for Monterrey. Jesus Orozco plays for Chivas. Jorge Sanchez over at Porto. Julian Araujo at Las Palmas. Jesus Gallardo over at Monterrey. Gerardo
Arteaga.
I knew that E threw me off. Arteaga. That will be the defenders. Now, over at the midfield block, Edson Alvarez, who's playing over at West Ham. Luis Romo over at Monterrey. Luis Chavez over at Dinamo Moscow. Carlos Rodriguez over at Cruz Azul. Eric Sanchez over at Pachuca. Roberto Alvarado over at Chivas. Uriel Antuna over at Cruz Azul. That is the midfield block. And the forwards, Julian Quinones over at America, which congratulations being able to go ahead and get him to be part of the Mexican national team. I know the threat he is in Liga MX. Orbelin Pineda, who plays for Athens. Irving Lozano, also a PSV boy, just like the three mentioned for the U.S. men's national team. Henry Martin, who plays for America. And Santiago Jimenez over at Feyenoord. All of them coached by Jaime Lozano and Ivan.
Yes.
Initial reaction to the roster, and then give us a grade.
This is probably the best we have. There are some snubs, some in there. I could have put Sebastian Cordova instead of probably Charlie Rodriguez in the midfield position. I'm not a big fan of Jorge Sanchez as a right back in from Porto. He's been very inconsistent, barely playing for Porto. But in terms of everything else, I'm very excited for it. I think that a lot of these players have been able to go ahead and mature and evolve. I like inclusion of Eric Sanchez, El Chiquito Sanchez, as they call him, the little one. He's been a mad one. He's been on a mad one with Pachuca, having 5 goals as a center midfielder. That's insane. Uriel Antuna has been having a lot of good games with Cruz Azul, been in first position for a few games now in third position. I'm excited to see Julian Quinones. He had a few games, 2 games for Mexico. He hasn't been able to score any goals, but he's moving the ball a lot. He's having a good season with America. And the question remains, do you put striker, Henry Martin or Santiago Jimenez? That's the question that I'm asking Jimmy Lozano. Both are really good players. Both are killers in the area. But those are 2 of them that I'm concerned for.
Go ahead and give us a grade rating of this Mexican national team.
There are some players that I would have loved to see, like Jonathan Dos Santos in the midfield position, but he got himself down. I'm gonna say B plus because this is the best we have, but
Yeah.
we could have done better.
I totally understand that in a point of these are the best players we've got. Italy went through a period of time where it's like, oh yeah, these guys are not great, but it's the best we've got. The United States, I mean, in that Bruce Arena era when he took over Jurgen Klinsmann, it's like, oh, it's
American
really the
Pillow,
best we got.
baby. Jackson Ewell.
Can't believe that article is still up. But let's go ahead and go through each of the 4 position blocks
Yeah.
and your thoughts here. I'll start here with Malagon for America against Ochoa for the starting position. Now, one of the points that I was going to bring up here, I had a discussion with you, but I also had a discussion with other individuals who covered the Mexican national team. And man, do these Mexican televisions have a chokehold
Yeah.
on which players get to play. And it's Ochoa right now that brings in the insane ratings, not insane ratings, but the best ratings out of these goalkeepers. So do we think Lozano is actually going to go ahead and play based on who's in form right now and who's a better goalkeeper? Or is this another tournament with Ochoa in the back?
Every time I see Ochoa being lined up, I ask myself the question: How much was he paid to line up Ochoa? I think the best goalkeeper in Mexico right now is Malagon, recent champion with America. He's been very consistent this season. I don't know why Ochoa keeps getting called. Carlos Acevedo is right there. There are some other players back in Fernando Tapia playing in Querétaro, who's having a really good season. 22 years old as well. Um, I mean, and this is the best we have. I mean, Ochoa would probably have playing time against United States. He's probably going to be starting against United States. I'm seeing Malagon starting against Jamaica.
Panama.
Yeah, Panama.
Unless
Yeah,
no,
that's right.
you're right. You'll be playing Jamaica in the 3rd place game. No, but I understand what you mean. So you expect if there's a final of US versus Mexico, it's going to be Ochoa in goal, but
Yeah.
against Panama, Malagon. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now, want to move over here to some of the defenders here. I mean, I'm going to try my best on who I know. Now, I do see a little bit of Johan Vasquez here for Genoa because I do
Yeah.
keep up with Serie A. And I think out of all of these defenders, he's probably one of the top 3 that stand out to me. I think he is probably going to be a guy that's going to go ahead and start for the national team.
Yes. That partnership of Johan Vasquez with Cesar Montes, they have been only scored once in 8 games. They have actually, yes, they have been playing 8 games last year, and they only have scored once. I think this is a solid partnership. I really like what I see with Julian Araujo in Las Palmas, who earned himself a call back to Barcelona.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus Gallardo, I was not a big fan of Jesus Gallardo in the last 2 years, but he's been regaining a lot of level with Monterrey, and I'm very excited to see. And also Gerardo Ter, who's could play in the right back position instead of Julian Araujo, who has been having a mad one with Monterrey. So it remains to see who plays in the right back position. So I think it's going to be between Johan Vasquez and Cesar Montes. That's for sure to me. That's a lock.
Yeah, no, Yvonne, I was gonna agree with you that I think one sus call just based on form was that Jorge Sanchez call because he is not even featuring in some games, like
Mm-mm.
playing any minutes. So he's definitely one of your domestic or abroad concerns.
Yes, definitely. I mean, there could have been some other players. There's a guy from Chivas called Alan Mozo who could have featured, but he hasn't been called up, and it's been garnering a lot of criticism from Mexican fans that he hasn't been called up. So I do wonder why he hasn't deserved. He deserves the call, in my opinion. But again, Jorge
Telemundo.
Sanchez. Jorge Sanchez is a household name now. Uh,
Effort.
Playing with America before, and people know him. And again, the ratings is what governs in Mexico. So that's why he's getting called up.
Well, I want to let we
Overall, pretty nice though.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably not gonna get a lot of playing time. I mean, with Jimmy, you never know, but we'll see.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, that will go ahead and wrap it up for our defenders. Then let's move over here to the midfield block. Arguably the best midfielder you have on the team right now. A top 3, 6 in CONCACAF, playing at West Ham. Edson Alvarez. How do you feel about Edson here? Is he the captain of this team?
He is the leader now. He is the captain along with Ochoa. Ochoa keeps getting the captain band. But yeah,
Of course.
after Rafael Marquez left, he's been the one that has to step up in the defense. He can play in the defense as a center back, and he can play as a that pivot. As a the sixth position in the as a holding midfielder. And he's been having a math one with West Ham, and along with McKinney, one of the best in Concacaf. So Luis Chavez, who was one of the standouts in the World Cup with that privileged left foot, he's going to be fantastic for our team, along with Eric Sanchez, who's one of the standouts as well.
Yeah, I'm looking at this roster that you guys have, and there's a lot of players from Monterrey here. But you said Eric Sanchez here, Luis Chavez, Edson Alvarez. That's the midfield block to go ahead and look out for. That could go ahead and really threaten both Panama and one of Jamaica or the United States here. So is it more, does Mexico look a lot better when Edson is playing in the midfield block or one of the center back positions?
Absolutely. Either way, Edson is a player you can rely on in any position. I prefer him in the midfield. That's because that's where he's playing. That's where he most feel. That's where he feels more comfortable. That's where David Moyes has been playing. And so I really like Edson Alvarez as a player. I think he's one of the best midfielders in the Premier League, dare I say, and hopefully he shows that against Panama.
And then
Well said.
I do like the inclusion of Antuna and Alvarado more than, like, let's say Charlie, because they do have great national team experience and um capable of providing that key pass late in a
Yeah,
game coming off the bench. And I think Mexico, this is probably one of the deepest rosters. I don't think we got my grade over it, but I would say this is probably like I'd probably say A compared to all the other Mexico rosters I've seen in the past. Truly, I think there's like you actually start to see progression in this team, um, rather than stagnation. So I think this is a really positive Mexico roster.
Well said. Good input there. I'm
yeah, absolutely.
I'm
We've grown
ex-
a lot under. Sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead. I
Oh
was
yeah,
just going to wrap it up and go to forwards.
Oh, we've seen a lot of improvement with Jimmy Lozano. We're still getting used to his system. So we'll see how we do in the Nations League. Go ahead.
cool.
Well, that will go ahead and wrap it up here for our midfield block then, and then moving over to the steak of this plate. These forwards, man, these forwards. From Lozano, who is getting regular minutes here for PSV. He looks like a better player there than he was at Napoli. Henry Martin over at America, who's absolutely cooking. Orbelin Pineda, and then probably one of the hottest strikers in the transfer market right now. Big teams are looking at him. Santi Jimenez over at Feyenoord. I know that because AC Milan is one of the teams that has been scouting him as well. But I don't want to go ahead and shine just all of the light over at Jimenez. Also, Quinones over at America playing for the
Yes.
national team. This is a player that I hope one day MLS removes the salary cap and DP crap and just one team just drops like 30 to 40 million on this guy and brings him to MLS. I mean, he's absolutely lethal, and it'd be crazy to number 9 to go ahead and have in the United States for any MLS team, really. But you have great options. I think compared to your other blocks, your forwards might be the best one. Can you go ahead
Yeah.
and just share a little bit of your thoughts looking at these 5 names that could go ahead and play up top?
I would agree. I don't think Irving Lozano is that player that we used to law back in 2018 against Germany in that goal. I don't know if you guys remember that. But yeah, I'm very excited. Julian Quinones is one of those players that I'm very excited about. He's been getting a lot of spotlight in America, and he's been showing his power, his strength with America, and so I'm very excited to see. Hopefully, Jimmy Lozano plays him as starting in the starting position in the left. I think, yeah, again, the question is Henry Martin, who's been more consistent in Mexico, against someone else, Santi Jimenez, who has been not had a lot of playing time with Mexico and has not scored that much with Mexico, but has been exploding with Feyenoord. So that's the question. It's an interesting question too.
Is that a
Because
question that you're bringing up? Because to me, when I see who am I going to start between Henry Martin and Santi Jimenez, for me, it seems like a no-brainer to go ahead and throw Jimenez in there.
you would think so, but for some reason he doesn't play the same when it comes to Mexico.
Sure.
Henry Martin has a different style of playing. He's more physical. Santi Jimenez is far more technical. And
Mm.
when you have players like Paixão or other players I'm blanking on the names in on Feyenoord who are very good passers, you don't have those kind of passers in Mexico.
Gotcha.
So it's interesting to see how that dynamic is going to play. So let's see if Jimmy can exploit those attributes for Santiago Jimenez. I think if he plays, he's going to play against the United States.
It would
I
just
see.
it would just be it seemed like a shame that you couldn't find a way to get a guy that's going to be a hot transfer value market in Europe to start for your national team. I would say Henry Martin's great and decently consistent with Mexico, but I wouldn't call him like the future of the Mexican national team going forward
Mhm.
either.
I mean, you
Nick,
have a 22-year-old against a
Mhm.
30-year-old, so there's a lot of future for Santi Jimenez here.
Of course.
Nick, looking at this looking at this forward block for Mexico here, given that there is a final of the United States versus Mexico, how do you feel? Do you feel a little bit more threatened than you have in the past, knowing these guys against our defense today? Like, what are your initial thoughts? Can you share a little bit about us? Like, if you had to go up against guys like Jimenez, Martin, Pineda, Lozano, and Quinones, how do you think that back line of the United States today can go ahead and hold on against these guys?
Um, I think it'll be fine. I don't think it's as strong as what I've recently seen for Mexico. Maybe not like this these last few years, but even like 4 years ago when you have Tecatito, Raul Jimenez, Lozano in great form. When they were coming at us, I thought it was much stronger than this. However, I think there's a lot to be desired with this forward line, and I think it's a good line to it's a great line for what Mexico have right now and to go forward in the future. I wouldn't say right now it scares me, but when these players really start to click, when they just gain more form, just overall for their club teams and stuff. I think this group will click like that other group.
Well, before we go ahead here and wrap up here our initial reactions and thoughts and analysis of this roster and move over to the whiteboard here to go ahead and do the predicted lineup here against Panama, I want to go ahead and mention one thing. Just like the men's national team for the U.S., some of these players that are playing in a certain league close to Mexico are not on this roster. So interesting to see that there are no Major League Soccer players who are currently Mexican who are playing in the league on this lineup here. Now,
Is there any snubs you would say though,
are there
Evan?
for
Not particularly. I have seen a few that have standouts, but I wouldn't call them snubs. I feel like they're gonna get their time when it comes. I feel like Jimmy right now is looking ahead and consolidate a team that he has been playing with to Copa America. I think this is what his aim is, and
Mhm.
we'll see after the process of Copa America if he starts to get more look at more young players in terms of looking at 2026.
Okay.
well, guys, that will go ahead and wrap it up here for our Mexican national team roster reaction, deep analysis, and just expectations here for the match against Panama. So let's get to the good stuff here. Let's move over to the whiteboard, and Ivan will help us out here doing a predicted lineup for Mexico against Panama.
All right, guys, we are back here at the blackboard here to go ahead and do the Mexican national team predicted starting 11. Yvonne, this is a team that you predict is going to go ahead and go against Panama. What's the
Yes.
formation looking like? We know there's only one guy in goal. Is this going to be Malagon or Ochoa against Panama?
Malagon, I think, will play against Panama, and I don't fathom Ochoa not having any minutes in these two games. So I think he's going to play in against the United States, given that the United States makes it or Mexico makes it to the final. We're going to do a 4-3-3 because that's what
Okay.
Jimmy is used to.
And at the left back position,
I have Gallardo, someone that has been solid with Monterrey, someone that loves to send long balls and has a very particular left foot. Uh, and yeah, overlap over there. I think in the center back positions we're gonna have Montes and Johan Vasquez. Johan being a little more the sweeper position, and Montes being a little more conservative. And at right back, I'm gonna go with Julian Araujo. It could go either way. It could go either Sanchez or Julian Araujo, but I'm gonna go with Julian Araujo, who's been more informed with Las Palmas and who gives a little bit more spice to that defending and been attacking minded as well, which is what Mexico needs.
in
In the
terms of the
three,
midfield, is it going to go ahead and be a double pivot or a lone six?
I think a lone six with Edson Alvarez being that at the back.
And we know the type
Some
of player that Edson is here at the six with West Ham, the form that he's in this season. So you slot him here at the sixth position, not one of the center backs, as we mentioned earlier. Talk to me about here the 2-8s. Is it going to be 2-8s or what is it going to look like?
Yes, two. On the left, we're gonna have Luis Chavez with that privileged left foot and great passer as well, and hopefully feed that ball to Henry or Santiago Jimenez. And then on the right, Eric Sanchez, who has been having a very good form with Pachuca, and I think he's gonna go ahead and start for Team Lozano.
You know I love Pachuca. Now,
Oh yes,
is this going to go ahead and be a 3 like the U.S. men's national team or one deep playing and then two forwards?
three. So we're gonna have on the left Julian Quinones.
Really?
Julian Quinones, I think he's going to be starting. I think he's the one that gives the explosion to the Mexican national team. I think he's going to give a lot of pace, which is needed against Panama. Um, if not, we're going to see Orbelin Pineda. But I'm going to go with Quinones here. And then this is where I ask myself, who? So I'm going to go ahead and say Henry Martin to give a little bit more practice and more rest to Santiago Jimenez against the United States. That's what I'm seeing. Henry Martin and Julian Quinones, who understand themselves very well in America. And I think we're going to see a very lovely partnership there. On the right, which is listed as a midfielder, but I see him more of a right as a forward, Uriel Antuna, who's been informed with Cruz Azul. I think he's been very consistent as well with Mexico, and Jimmy Lozano has been finding a lot of explosion with him in the right. So I'm going to go with Uriel Antuna.
This is a really nice lineup here, the 4-3-3, just like the U.S. men's national team. Now,
Can I
you're
throw
going.
something in here real quick?
Go ahead.
Any we talk about or this is just Panama. Are you saying Chucky? Because we're talking also about who we're gonna see Ochoa. Do you think
Against
Chucky's
Panama.
gonna be a player more in the final?
I think yes. I think Quinones is one that Jimmy still wants to experiment with. I think we don't know quite yet how much he can perform with Mexico, how much he can quite yet uh, m- mesh with the team. So I think Panama is a good preparation for Quinones. I think Lozano is more experimented, more experience in big games. I think we're gonna see him against USA.
Okay, I'm not sure if you mentioned that. I went to get some water.
So yeah,
Got
I
to stay
think we're gonna
hydrated,
go.
Nick.
Yep.
So in goal here, we're going here with form over TV ratings. So Malaga and for America getting the nod here to go against Panama. You mentioned Gallardo's here, his beautiful left foot, ability to play long balls to guys like
Yeah.
Quinones who are explosive and has that chemistry here with Martin. So this is going to be a deadly duo to go ahead and keep a lookout this Nations League window. In the back here, the pairing you mentioned, 8 matches together, only 1 goal conceded between Montes and Vasquez. So
Correct.
that's really great on paper. I'm not gonna lie. If you can go ahead and go into a game like Panama, we know the quality they are in CONCACAF, and these two guys step up and help out their goalkeeper Malagon. they can go ahead and go into that final, given they win, with a lot of momentum, knowing that defensively they're sound. Now, the interesting selection here you made is Araujo here at Las Palmas, getting the nod here to go ahead and start because of his current form here for Las Palmas. That would be an interesting matchup. Also, if you do end up facing the United States, this is a man who snubbed the United States, a duel that was really highly wanted.
Sought out for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then of course the six, as I mentioned earlier, arguably one of the top 3 6s here in CONCACAF. We know his presence in front of the center back position where he can go ahead and help out, but we also know his ability to distribute the ball to guys like Luis Chavez and Sanchez here, who you mentioned, his left foot has the ability to find the space in behind for Quiñones, Martinez, and Antuna here to go ahead and threaten the opposition. And I'm excited to go ahead and see the quality that Sanchez here brings alongside Edson and Chavez. As I mentioned, I love me Pachuca. So I already talked about here Quiñones and Martin. You're choosing Martin over Santi, a guy who's in form and has experience in the chemistry playing alongside the Mexican national team. You bring on a guy like Santi with 20, 25 minutes left in the game, a guy who's a proven goal scorer against tired legs. This is a deadly team. This is a deadly team. And then here you went with Antuna over Lozano, but you do think Lozano will go ahead and get the nod against the United States or Jamaica in the final. So this will be interesting to see. You mentioned he's also a midfielder listed on paper, so it could be really interesting to see if he actually comes back into the midfield a little bit. These two kind of tuck in a little bit, and you have a 10 right behind them. So it'll be interesting to see the tactical approach that Lamborghini, Jaime Lozano will go ahead and play against Panama. But overall, out of 10, what do we think about this lineup? For me personally, this is a solid 8.5. Me, 8.5.
I'm gonna say 9, just because I love Quiñones and I want to see that partnership that we see in America with Quiñones and Martin. I think if Santiago Jimenez starts and Quiñones starts against the United States, given that there's a final between the United States and Mexico, I'm excited to see how that mobility and that pace can contribute to Jimenez goal scoring ability, that killer ability. So we'll see.
Nick, your rating for this Mexican national team?
I think I'd probably give it like an 8.
You want to further
expand? I still think I still think there's questions on the right back. I think Araujo's in form, but I'm not sure who they're gonna I'm just not sure how he's gonna if he's gonna really if he's really ready to take over that role as a right back. I'm still waiting to see. I'm still question marks on Sanchez. He's an exciting player, but still whether he's gonna expand on that role for Mexico. It takes a lot to break in. I'm really excited about Chavez. I think 8. I think 8's a solid rating just because I'm excited about Chavez. I already know pretty much what I'm gonna get out of Antuna. And Gallardo, I still need to rate him again. So he's still a big question mark on whether form is going to translate for the national team. So I still give it an 8. I think they're it's more of a wait and see team than an established team.
Agreed.
All right, guys. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed these Blackboard formation predicted starting 11s that we did for both the U.S. men's national team and the Mexican national team.
All right, guys. Well, this will go ahead and wrap it up here for our U.S. men's national team and the Mexican national team Nations League roster reactions, predicted lineup, in-depth analysis brought to you guys here by the Linners and Wosers gang. I was joined here by the awesome fellas, as always, Nick Rosser, Ivan De La Garza, and what a fun time we did. We tried something new here with the Blackboard, doing the predicted lineups, and we're actually on time here to go ahead and have a short episode. Short to us is an hour.
Absolutely.
But guys, the United States will go ahead and face off here against Jamaica on Thursday, March 21st. And right after that game, it will be the Mexican national team playing off against Panama. The winners of those two games will go ahead and face off here. I believe the final is on Sunday. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, the final will be on Sunday. It will be really interesting to see maybe if we get USA Mexico, we can go ahead and do a watch along here, which will go ahead and be a lot of fun. But stay tuned as we go ahead and bring you more coverage of the game, any updates related to the men's national team. To the Mexican, thank you. To the Mexican national team as well. We'll go ahead and bring you updates on Twitter. You can check out Linners and Wosers' main page directly for all U.S. men's national team related news. You can go ahead and check out Ivan's personal Twitter here for go ahead and any updates on the Mexican national team. But as always, we'll always go ahead and post that on the Linners and Wosers homepage as well. Nick and I are headed to Tulsa, Oklahoma on Tuesday for Northern Colorado Hailstorm FC's U.S. Open Cup match, first round against Tulsa Athletic. We'll be bringing you guys insane amount of coverage and content there, making up 50% of the fan base that goes to 2 guys. So it's probably, it'd be, I'm not entirely sure whose families are going to be able to make it because it was so last notice. And there's a lot of factors playing in there. I don't think they're flying. They might be taking a bus like us. Keep it posted. But this has been an exciting Linners and Wosers episode. As always, guys, thanks for tuning in. Ciao, ciao.